Ever wander through the stacks and feel like a book might be watching you?
Or worse, like it's waiting for someone to read it again.
Tonight, we're opening the covers of history's most haunted, forbidden, and downright cursed books. The ones said to drive their readers mad, summon the devil, or reveal knowledge no one was meant to know.
We're talking about the Voynich Manuscript, the Devil's Bible, Shakespeare's Macbeth,
The Piri Reis Map, the Necronomicon, and the Malleus Maleficarum.
the strange, the scholarly, and the possibly supernatural, all bound between pages.
So light a candle, grab your favorite blanket, and maybe don't listen to this one alone.
Welcome to Library-ish, the podcast from the Butte County Library, where every shelf has a story, and some of them whisper back.
Let's go.
There is a book locked away in the Yale University Library that no one, no scholar, no linguist, no codebreaker has ever been able to read. Its pages are filled with strange, looping patterns from no known alphabet. Its margins overflow with impossible planets, alien star charts, and women bathing in pools of green liquid that flow through pipes like veins. It is known only as the Voynich Manuscript. This isn't fiction. The Voynich Manuscript is real ink on vellum, painstakingly written by hand in the early 1400s. Radiocarbon testing confirms it. Between 1404 and 1438, someone created it, but no one knows who. The story begins, at least for us, in 1912. A Polish-Lithuanian bookseller named Wilfred Voynich was combing through the Jesuit library near Rome when he stumbled on a dusty, leathery-bound tome. He opened it and found page after page of strange, hypnotic script. He bought it immediately, certain he had discovered something extraordinary. Voynich believed the book might be the lost work of Roger Bacon, a 13th century English philosopher rumored to have delved into forbidden sciences. But when he showed it to scholars, no one could read a single word. The writing was too perfect, too consistent to be random scribbles. The letters formed words, the words formed paragraphs, even pages, but they didn't match any known language or code. And then there were the drawings, twisted plants that don't exist anywhere on Earth, diagrams of the stars that map to no known sky, naked women wandering in greenish fluids under mysterious pipes and structures. Voynich became obsessed. He took the book to every cryptographer and linguist he could find. None succeeded. During World War II, Allied codebreakers who cracked Nazi ciphers tried to decipher the Voynich Manuscript. Even the National Security Agency analyzed it during the Cold War, searching for patterns, hidden keys, anything. Every single one of them failed. The book resisted them all. Over time, it began to collect legends the same way old paper collects dusts. Some said it was written in a forgotten tongue. Others said it was just a hoax. But the parchment itself is authentic, medieval, centuries older than Voynich. And here's what makes the hoax theory fall apart. The text behaves like real language. Statistical analysis shows patterns of repetition, word frequency, even grammar. It looks like writing, but it's not any writing we know. A 17th century letter found with the manuscript offers one more unsettling clue. It was written by Johannes Marcus Marci, a physician of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. Marci claimed the emperor had purchased the book for 600 gold ducats, a fortune, and believed it to be the work of the English monk Roger Bacon. Some say Rudolph believed it was not the work of any human hand at all, but a revelation, an angelic script, or something worse. In the centuries since, countless minds have broken themselves against this wall. Linguists, mathematicians, cryptologists, and dreamers, each convinced they could be the one to unlock it. None ever did. And still, the book endures. You can even view it online now. High-resolution scans from Yale's Voynich Rare Books and Manuscript Library. But some claim the images glitch, files corrupt themselves, and the manuscript resists being copied. Archivists say it's just a coincidence. Maybe it is. But if you stare too long at those looping letters, you start to feel something looking back. It's not a curse in the storybook sense, no hexes, no demons, just an endless question that won't let you go. Who wrote this? And why? And maybe that's the true curse of the Voynich Manuscript. Not what's inside, but what it does to those who try to understand it.
They call it the Devil's Bible, a book so large, so strange, that legend says it was written in one single night with the help of hell itself. Its real name is the Codex Gigas. In Latin, it means the giant book, and it is. The Codex Gigas stands nearly 3 feet tall, bound in thick wooden boards wrapped in leather, weighing over 160 pounds. It's the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world, and perhaps the strangest. It was created sometime in the early 13th century inside a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia, in what is now the Czech Republic. Monks there were forbidden to speak after dark, but every night the sound of scraping quill and whispering prayers echoed from a single cell. The scribe's name was never recorded. The monks simply called him the Recluse. The story goes that he broke his vows. Some say pride, some say blasphemy, and was condemned to a dreadful punishment. He would be walled alive inside the monastery. Desperate to save his soul, he begged his abbot for one chance to atone. "If I can write a book that contains all human knowledge by morning," he said, "will you spare me?" The abbot agreed, believing it impossible. But as midnight neared, the monk realized what he had promised. The candlelight trembled, the ink froze on his quill, and so he prayed, not to God, but to someone else. The devil appeared. The pact was simple. The monk would finish his masterpiece before dawn, but his soul would belong to the one who helped him write it. By sunrise, the book was complete. Its pages contain the entire Latin Bible, medical treatises, histories, and mystical texts, even an ancient manual of exorcisms. And there, in the very center, stood a full-page portrait of the devil himself. A horned figure crouched on a blood-red background, claws extended, eyes wide with hunger. No other illuminated manuscript in Christendom dared give the devil such honor. For centuries afterward, the book carried a dark reputation. They said misfortune followed wherever it went. In the 15th century, the monastery that housed it was struck by plague. Later, it passed into the library of Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, a ruler obsessed with the occult, and his empire crumbled soon after. During the 30 Years' War, Swedish troops seized Prague, looting the royal library. The Codex Gigas was carried off to Stockholm, to the Royal Library of Sweden, where it remains today. Even there, it couldn't rest. In 1697, a fire broke out at the royal castle. As flames consumed the library, a soldier threw the giant book from a window to save it, and though it survived, the man below was crushed beneath its weight. The book has always demanded a price. Scholars who've examined it agree that despite the legend, it was written by a single hand. Modern analysis shows the handwriting is painstakingly consistent across every one of its 310 vellum pages. Experts estimate it would have taken one monk over 20 years of nonstop work to complete, yet the ink never fades. The script never wavers. It's as if time itself stood still while it was written. Some researchers claim to hear faint whispering when they turn the pages in the Royal Library's reading room. Others say the air grows colder near the devil's portrait, as though something still lingers behind the parchment, watching. If you look at the Codex Gigas today, you could see the legend written in its fibers. You could see the desperation of a man trying to save his soul, and perhaps the thing that answered him. Was it truly the devil's work? Or merely humanity's need to believe that no mortal could create something so vast, so perfect, alone? Either way, when you stand before it, taller than a child, thicker than a tombstone, you understand the fear, because some books are too large to close, and some stories refuse to end.
They say you should never speak the name aloud in a theater, not even in rehearsal, not even in a whisper, because there's a curse upon it, a curse as old as the play itself. I'm, of course, talking about Macbeth, or, as actors call it, the Scottish play. The legend begins in 1606, when William Shakespeare first staged his dark tale of ambition, prophecy, and murder. According to theater lore, the very first performance ended in disaster. The actor playing Lady Macbeth, a man, as all female roles were back then, fell ill suddenly and died backstage on opening night. Others say the prop cauldron exploded, burning several actors. Still, others claim the first line, "When shall we three meet again?" wasn't a question at all, but an invocation. You see, the story goes that Shakespeare, seeking realism for his witches' scenes, used actual incantations, real spells taken from contemporary witchcraft texts. The local covens were furious, and in revenge, they cursed the play. And ever since, the superstition has clung to it like smoke to a torch. The curse struck early and often. In 1672, a performance in Amsterdam ended when the actor playing Macbeth used a real dagger instead of a prop and killed his co-star on stage. In 1703, the opening of another production coincided with one of the worst storms in English history. Lightning shattered church spires, flooding drowned entire towns. Theater folk began to whisper, "Say the name and you summon the storm." Even great actors weren't spared. In 1849, two rival productions of Macbeth in New York City sparked the Astor Plains riots, leaving more than 20 people dead and over 100 injured. In 1937, Sir Lawrence Oliver nearly died on stage when a stage weight crashed down, just missing him. The director and the actor playing King Duncan were both hospitalized in separate accidents the same week. Even after the curtain fell, tragedy followed. Oliver's sword broke during the duel scene, stabbing his co-star in the chest. The same year, a production directed by Orson Welles in Harlem was plagued with illness, fires, and the sudden death of a technician who collapsed in the wings. Some say you can still hear his footsteps pacing backstage when the witches begin their chant. So what do actors do if someone dares to speak the name out loud? There's a ritual for that. You must leave the theater immediately, spin 3 times, spit over your left shoulder, curse, and then knock to be let back in. If you skip a step, well, that's between you and whatever's waiting in the wings. No one knows who invented the ritual. Maybe it started as a joke, maybe as insurance, but everyone in the theater world knows better than to test it. The curse has a long memory. In 1947, the actor Harold Norman was fatally stabbed during a Macbeth performance in Manchester when a stage sword's guard snapped. His ghost, they say, still haunts the theater, appearing on the anniversary of his death. In 1953, actor Charlton Heston's tights caught fire during a performance, leaving him with several burns. And in 2013, the actor playing Macbeth at the Lincoln Center collapsed during his death scene, only this time he didn't get up. Stagehands, costumers, lightning techs, they're all telling you the same thing. Strange things happen when you tempt fate on that play. Lights blow out, props vanish, voices whisper cues when no one called. Some insist it's all a coincidence. Others don't. There's a reason actors still call it the Scottish play. Not because they fear the story, ambition, prophecy, murder, but because they fear the words themselves. 400 years those lines have been spoken on dark stages all over the world. Every actor who's played Macbeth, Oliver, McKellen, Washington, Cumberbatch, will tell you the same thing. There's a weight to it, a heaviness that clings to the tongue. When the witches appear, the air shifts, the lights dim, the audience leans forward, and it's as if the play itself knows it's being spoken again. So if you ever find yourself standing on a stage, surrounded by darkness, and someone asks you to say the name of the play, don't. Whisper it if you must. Call it the Scottish play, the Bard's Curse, anything you like, but never say the word Macbeth. Because in every theater, on every stage, there's always someone or something listening for it.
In 1513, on the deck of an Ottoman warship, a man named Ahmed Muhaddin Piri, known to history as Piri Reis, unfurled a map that should not have existed. It was drawn on gazelle hide, stitched at the edges, its colors still bright beneath the salt air. It showed the world, Europe, Africa, and something more. A jagged coastline stretched across the southern edge, not yet named, not yet known. Centuries later, scholars would recognize it. They'd call it Antarctica. But Piri Reis lived 300 years before Antarctica's discovery. How could he have mapped a continent buried under ice? Piri Reis was no ordinary sailor. He was an Ottoman admiral, scholar, and cartographer, nephew to the privateer Kemal Reis, who raided Spanish galleons in the early 1500s. From prisoners, explorers, and traders, Piri Reis collected fragments of maps, Portuguese charts of Africa, Arabic star maps, and, most mysteriously, maps drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. He combined them all into one grand chart of the world. In his own notes, still written in the margins of the map, he claimed to have used 20 charts and Mapi Mundi, including one drawn by Columbus himself. He said the old maps had been copied from sources long lost, charts from ancient times, made by people who could see the earth from above. It was a boast easily dismissed until the map was rediscovered 4 centuries later. In 1929, inside the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, a group of scholars cataloging the Sultan's library uncovered a rolled piece of parchment wedged behind a cabinet. When they unrolled it, they froze. There was South America, drawn in exquisite detail. There was Africa's western coast, accurate within mere degrees of modern longitude. And at the bottom, an ice-bound continent that should not have been there. The Piri Reis Map seemed to show the coast of Antarctica, not as it is now, buried under ice, but as it would have appeared ice-free more than 6,000 years ago. How could a 16th century scholar know that? Science argued it was a coincidence. The map, they said, merely stretched the South American coastline too far east. But others saw something else. In 1960, U.S. Air Force cartographer Charles Hapgood examined the map. Hapgood proposed that it wasn't a mistake. The Piri Reis had drawn his chart from ancient source maps, predating all known civilizations. He called it evidence of a lost, advanced society, a culture capable of global navigation long before the Egyptians had built their pyramids. Even Albert Einstein, yes, that Einstein, wrote a preface to Hapgood's 1966 book, admitting that the mystery deserved investigation. Others whispered of Atlantis, of pre-Diluvian civilizations swallowed by the sea. Skeptics called it pseudoscience. But the map remains, and the puzzle has never been solved. Only a fragment of the map survives. The rest is gone, perhaps burned when the Ottoman fleet fell, or hidden beneath the archives of the Topkapi. Some say sailors who touched it fell ill. One archivist reportedly refused to handle it again after hearing waves whenever he stood near the case. The Piri Reis Map is not cursed in the traditional sense. Its danger lies in what it suggests, that our history may be incomplete, our discoveries not our own. When you look at it, you see a world half known and half remembered, a glimpse of something we were never meant to rediscover. So the next time you stand before a map and trace the edges of the earth, remember the admiral who drew a world he could not have seen, and the secret shorelines that might still sleep beneath the ice.
They say there are books you read to learn and books you read to remember, but there are very few that should remember you. The Necronomicon is one of them. Its story begins more than 1,000 years ago in the deserts near Damascus. There, a poet and mystic named Abdul Aharazed wandered the ruins of forgotten cities, ancient places older than Babylon, where the air still smelled of ash and old gods. He claimed to have found inscriptions carved in stone that predated humanity, and beneath them, something living that had never died. When he returned to civilization, he was no longer the same man. In the year 730, he completed his great work, an Arabic text called Al-Azif, a title referring to the sound of nocturnal insects, which he said was the echo of demons whispering in the dark. Within those pages, Al-Harazed recorded the forbidden history of the old ones, vast, immortal beings that sleep beyond the stars, waiting for the time when the gates will be open and they will reclaim the earth. He described words to summon them, and worse, to see them. Soon after, Al-Harazed was found dead, or rather, unmade. In a marketplace in Damascus, witnesses said he was seized by an invisible force, torn apart in full daylight before the crowd of screaming onlookers. The Al-Hazif was banned immediately, but a few copies survived. Over the centuries, it re-emerged in translation. A Greek edition, the Necronomicon, appeared around 950 under the scholar Theodorus Philetus of Constantinople. The title meant the Book of Dead Names. The translation was condemned by both church and state, but it circulated in secret, copied by monks of candlelit cells, traded between occult scholars, smuggled across borders under false titles. In 1228, the Necronomicon was rendered into Latin by Olaus Wormius, and that edition, the Liber Mortuorium, spread through the monasteries of Europe. Those who possessed it were said to be cursed, Entire abbeys burned, supposedly by spontaneous flame. Scholars vanished into madness, leaving behind pages filled with alien symbols written in their own blood. By 15th century, the book was officially banned by Pope Gregory IX, and every known copy ordered destroyed. But of course, none ever are. A few volumes survived. One rests in the British Museum under seal. Another is rumored to be hidden in the Vatican archives, accessible only by the Pontifical Office of Exorcisms. 2 more Latin copies are said to be preserved in Harvard's Widener Library and the University of Buenos Aires, though neither institution will confirm it. And one, the oldest, remains in Arkham, in the restricted collection of the Miskatonic University in Massachusetts. Those who have studied even fragments of it say the book is alive, that its pages hum faintly when touched, that the letters rearrange themselves in moonlight. Many report that when the book is opened, the air around it grows cold. And if you read too long, you begin to hear things. Some say the Necronomicon doesn't simply describe the old ones, it connects to them. The words, the sigils, the diagrams, they're not instructions, they're coordinates. The book is a map of the spaces between dimensions, and the human mind was never meant to read it whole. Those who try either go mad or disappear. But the Necronomicon has never stayed buried for long. In 1586, a scholar named Dr. John Dee, astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I, reportedly attempted to translate it to English with his medium Edward Kelly. They never finished. Their notes, now called the Dee fragments, were found centuries later among alchemical papers, smeared with black ink and something darker. In the 17th century, a few surviving pages began to circulate through the secret societies of Europe. By the early 20th century, scattered copies resurfaced in the United States. The most recent printed version appeared in 1977, released under the pseudonym Simon. This so-called Siren Necronomicon claimed to combine Sumerian rituals with the surviving Latin text. Scholars dismissed it, but the rites were recognizable to anyone who'd read the older accounts. They were the same names, the same symbols, the same warnings. Today, a handful of these volumes are still said to exist, some behind glasses in libraries, others hidden in private collections, and a very few that simply vanish. If you ever find a book bound in dark leather, its pages thick and heavy, inked with characters that seem to move when you blink. If you see the title, Necronomicon, pressed faintly into the cover, close it. Walk away. And whatever you do, don't read the names out loud, because some books aren't written to be read. They're written to remember who reads them.
They called it the Hammer of Witches, a book that promised to protect the faithful, and instead unleashed an age of terror. Its Latin name was Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches. Written in 1486, it was not a story, but a weapon forged from ink and fear. Its authors, 2 Dominican inquisitors, Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger, claim they wrote it to defend the church from the growing threat of witchcraft. But behind their pious words hid something darker. Europe was changing. The printing press had just been invented. The Black Death still haunted memory. And whispers of magic, of women flying, of demons consorting in the night, were spreading faster than ever. Kramer and Sprenger saw themselves as soldiers in a holy war. In their eyes, every storm, every sickness, every failed crop was the work of witches, the devil's servants in human skin. So they gathered everything they knew, scripture, superstition, rumor, and bound it together in one book, the Malleus Maleficarum. It was divided into 3 parts. The first argued that witchcraft was real. The second explained how to identify a witch. And the third explained how to destroy one. But this wasn't just a manual, it was a manifesto. It taught judges and priests that mercy was sin, that doubt was heresy, that women were by nature weaker, more carnal, and more prone to corruption. It told them witches must be hunted, tortured, and burned, not for what they'd done, but for what they might do. In 1487, the book was approved by the University of Cologne, falsely as it turned out. The theologians had condemned it, but Kramer forged an endorsement on the title page. It worked. The Malleus Maleficarum spread like wildfire across Europe, one of the first books ever printed on the new Gutenberg press. Every inquisitor, every magistrate, every fearful priest had a copy, and with it, they had permission. Permission to torture, permission to execute, permission to turn neighbor against neighbor. From Germany to France, from Italy to Scotland, the witch hunts began. By the time they ended, centuries later, tens of thousands of people, mostly women, had been tortured, drowned, or burned. The flames that consumed them were lit by the words of a single book. Kramer himself died disgraced, obsessed, and nearly excommunicated, his peers denouncing him as mad with zealotry. But his book outlived him. Everywhere it went, it left blood in its wake. In Bamberg, Germany, whole villages were wiped out. In Scotland, witch prickers carried iron needles to test for the devil's mark. In Salem, Massachusetts, more than 200 years later, echoes of the Malleus shaped the accusations and trials. Even today, some of its passages sound familiar. The fear of the outsider, the need to blame someone, the obsession with purity. The Malleus Maleficarum is not cursed in the way of demons or magic. Its curse is simpler and far more human. It convinced people that cruelty was holy. If you hold a copy of the Malleus Maleficarum today, its pages yellowed, its ink still black as midnight. It looks like any other medieval text, but historians say something strange about it. The parchment feels colder than other books from the same century. The ink never seems to fade, and sometimes, in the margins, faint writing appears. Latin words no scholar remembers recording. Maybe it's just age. Maybe it's something else. The book was banned in the 1800s, yet copies survive in libraries across the world. Cambridge, Rome, Munich, the Vatican. They sit behind glass, silent and still. But every so often, someone reports a chill in the air near the display, or a flicker in the light. Maybe that's superstition. Or maybe it's the echo of 1,000 souls, the voices of those who perished in the fire the book began. They say the Malleus Maleficarum was written to destroy witches, but in the end, it only proved that the real darkness was human.
So, what have we learned? Some books are dangerous because of what's inside them, and others because of what people believed about them.
That's right. From ancient manuscripts that refused to be decoded to maps that chart lands no one should have known existed, these stories remind us that knowledge itself has always been a little bit haunted.
Just a smidgen. Just a little
Just
bit.
a skosh.
And whether it's ink, imagination, or something darker, the real curse might just be curiosity.
That's right. Because once you open the book, you can't unknow what's inside.
I can't unsee it.
That too.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Library-ish, brought to you by the Butte County Library. Don't forget to follow, like, and share, or maybe leave a review if you dare.
Until next time, we leave you with the words of author Haruki Murakami. If you only read the books that everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking.
Facts.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.